in the flesh. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair. Rich Jansen and Scott Johnston with the Natural Resources Department. And I'm joined today with two of our friends and neighbors, a consulting firm that we have used to garner support and funding for many different projects, such as roads and walking paths today. And it's Donnie Pfeiffer to my right, and Ed Tovas, who you probably knew or know. He knows some of you, former MDOT worker, now working for DJ&H. And what? Oh, Ed's company is something else, or you again? Jacobs. Anyway. Still in COVID fog from a year ago. But members of the Tribal Council, good to see you again. Today, I just want to kind of give you some information and talk about a project that has been a long time coming. You know, the People's Way was started in 2000, and we still have a few projects that need to be completed, especially in the St. Ignatius and Ronan area that haven't been done. And we are going to talk to you guys today about the nationally significant Federal Lands Tribal Project Grant application that we're going to look at pursuing in the near future with DJ&A's help and Jacobs. And it's the Post Creek section of Highway 93 and the Nine Pipe section of Highway 93, which are very significant to us. And I'm kind of hoping Whisper can join us. Or some people from the state might be joining us, just kind of talk to you about it. And I'm going to have Donnie go ahead and begin his presentation. I did email you the presentation to Jennifer. I just don't know if she's had a chance to put it in your packet today. So thank you, and I'll turn it over to Donnie.
All right. Thanks, Rich. Chairwoman Fine, members of the Tribal Council, thank you very much for having me up here. Like Rich said, we've been working with you guys, DJ&A, for quite a while to deliver, you know, multiple projects, and now we have the opportunity again. I say that because we looked at this last year as well, to try to pursue a significant federal grant, you know, to help finalize the last remaining the Nine Pipes and Post Creek sections of the US 93 corridor. So extremely excited and honored to be here and be able to participate and help with this project. So again, my name's Donnie, and I'm a project manager and transportation engineer with DJ&A, which we're headquartered in Missoula. And again, Ed, our partners here with Jacobs Engineering, and a lot of you guys know Ed. We actually both worked for a period of time at MDT together. And before that, I've done a lot of different highway projects with Oregon DOT and Montana DOT prior to this. So we wanted to walk through some highlights of this grant opportunity. I don't know if so if we flip to the next slide, try to kind of keep pace. So so that on the left side of the screen is just kind of an example of what the notice of funding opportunity looks like. And it's, you know, several pages long. And I just wanted to kind of show an example of the grant itself. But this particular program has some high level emphasis on, you know, obviously tribal related projects that are at least $24 million in construction costs, but over 50 is preferred. So the grant really emphasizes projects just like this project on 93. We feel it's just a really good fit, extremely competitive way to bring in a lot of funding. It does require a 10% match, which we have approached and talked with MDT about providing that match similar to the way they would approach a typical MDT project. There's a portion of state funding. Now, the match wouldn't have to come from that source, but that's what we've discussed so far. But it just could not be other transportation federal monies. So there is that. And obviously CSKT would be the direct travel recipient, which is required to be eligible. So again, just a lot of things about this grant that make this project a really good fit. One of the main items that we kind of prepared this last week, in this grant cycle, the application is due January 9th. And we proposed and we met with MDT on Monday, yesterday morning, to discuss that. And it does not look like we would have their support to proceed in this cycle. But we do know that this grant is not going away. And so I think it's kind of a question of not if, but when this would come up. And so right now we're looking at moving forward with Rich and his team to help support the eventual proposal, likely in the next year's cycle. So that due date is when this current 2021 grant application is due. And we fully anticipate there being another opportunity next year and then the year after that as well, which would have very similar requirements.
If I can just speak up real quick, it's not that the state did not support it. They do support this project. They have money waiting to put in a match. When we submit it, they just felt, we just talked through a few things, few items, some risk, trying to be less risk averse and get some more data before we submit our grant. So they were supportive. They just asked us to hold off another year. Just because we felt and they felt we'd have a better chance next year.
Go ahead, Len.
Curious to know, I haven't had the opportunity to take in-depth look at the infrastructure bill that was recently passed, and I just kind of want to know how, if there was funding there that was set aside to complete the Highway 93 project. And I know some of the other councilmen been wondering about that also, and I don't know. So Shelley, I'm not sure if you were, if you had those discussions with anyone, but maybe that's something we need to see if we can get acknowledgement from MDOT on whether or not that's going to happen, because we all seen this highway when it first started, and gosh, 20 years ago, I believe it was. Here we are, we just have the last two segments that we need to complete. And in addition to that, there have been some flaws that we've identified here, just in this segment here, that we wanted addressed also before. And it doesn't really matter when we get going, just so they're addressed and we're able to address those, because we have members that are coming forward and concerned about the safety flaws that we got going here on the highway right now. But anyway, I just wanted to mention it. Thank you.
So there is money in infrastructure for transportation, specifically for tribes. And I can resend you the memo that I believe our lobbyist sent us. There's kind of a summary of that. James has something. Go ahead, James.
Yeah, thank you. Sorry, let me lower my hand. Just a kind of a question in terms of some of the things that Len mentioned. After we got the sections done that we have completed. Rich, if this grant was successful, does it allow for, I guess it would allow for some of the things we learned in the other sections to be included here. One idea was, that walk path there in Mission, or Pablo next to Mission Valley Power, where people are walking right along the fence line. I was kind of wondering maybe in the transportation funds we get or this process, I don't know that would be in this process since it's two different sections, but anyway, the learning those things that we should correct from the prior completions.
I can first address Councilman Len's comment a little bit too. And, we can send out some information we have at this time looking at the infrastructure bill. And we do think it's really generous towards projects like this 93 project to bring a lot of sources of funding, even in addition to this grant. And up until that got passed, it was hard to determine if the nationally significant program was going to continue. Now, not only is it going to continue, but it's going to be funded at a larger level than it has ever been in the past. So we think there's a lot of indications, as well as wildlife crossing funding. There's some safety funding out there that was never part of the previous transportation bill. And if you want, I can send Rich and pass that along with some additional information about that. And we're absolutely looking at that with MDT also to try to find sources of funding in addition to the grant that we think would help this project out. And I might let Ed speak a little bit more to the, but some of the main framework on the very bottom slide here kind of touches on it. Is the SEIS that was wrapped up in 2016 is the environmental document that'll kind of be the guidance for what the look and feel of the highway is. Within that, though, I know there are opportunities to to look in obviously a lot of design work will have to take place and make sure that we do capture some of these things that are important. So Ed, if you want to elaborate on that, though.
Sure. Good afternoon, Chairman Fient, members of the council. It's good to see you again. To elaborate on 9 Pipe specifically, the SEIS that was signed a number of years ago was somewhat prescriptive in what was to be built. At a high level, they were looking at trying to do more of an alignment that you see in the St. Ignatius area. That's not a straight line. It's called a curvilinear alignment. The idea was to blend in to the area. And now that corridor is very sensitive in terms of its properties. And when I was at MDT, we had past discussions about that. And so there has been some work done to identify those areas so that the mitigation or the impacts to those areas are minimized to the extent possible. Also, the document does talk about a shared use path, just like going through the Ronan section and the Post Creek Hill section. So that is spelled out. So anything that would be, well, 2 things. First, anything that is designed has to comply with that SEIS. And second, it has to be agreed upon and approved by CSKT along with MDT. But that's part of the agreement. So those 2 things have to be held. And if there are, and there was a safety audit that was done a number of years ago on the sections that have been completed. And so there were some things that, some items that were successful and some items that we'd do differently the next time. And so I think definitely the point's well taken as far as taking those lessons learned and applying those to a future project with an emphasis on safety, animal passage, cultural significance, and a lot of that is described in the SEIS that was agreed upon years ago. And again, anything that would come out of that any design and construction would have to comply with that and be met with the approval by CSKT.
And the next slide does show a map just to kind of reintroduce the two segments specifically in the locations where from Brook Lane to Gunlock Road is the, as you guys know, the 9-pipe section, and then from Gunlock down to Dublin, or just south of Dublin, is the Post Creek. With the area north of Brook Lane still being part of the current plan to move forward with the Ronan Urban project. And all three of those, when completed, would make up the rest of the 93 corridor.
Go ahead, Anita.
So I have a question. You mentioned that you did a safety, some kind of safety report or some
Safety audit?
audit. Is that considered the wrecks and the stuff that has gone on through that whole corridor from about Charlotte turnoff all the way down past Post Creek? Because it just seems like there's one wreck after another there.
Mhm.
And very dangerous. People are always trying to pass and.
Yeah. So the audit was conducted approximately 5 years ago. And MDT, can make that available. Rich, your office might have that audit on file as well to take a look at. But and I know at the time it was Lloyd and Ron off the council were involved in that audit. And of course, they were two of the original council members on the original EIS, and Carol probably remembers that. And so we had some really good input. What came out of that, and I couldn't quote specifics, but your comments well noted. The idea of a safety audit is at that point in time, it's to identify issues that you have. And so that document can spell out what was observed, both on the sections that were built and the sections that were not built at that time. And the idea was to take lessons learned and apply those to these sections that haven't been built. But to Len's point, just like with any improvement, you make your, and that's what happened at the time. You made your best judgment on a design, and then you constructed it. And then over time, you find that there are things that could be done differently, especially if you have increased traffic, and eventually the corridor will have increased pedestrian traffic. And so as those safety issues are identified, those can be programmed into projects to address those if they're outside of this center section that hasn't been built. But I would encourage those interested to take a look at that safety audit, and that can spell out the specifics. And if your comment is not addressed in there, then I would suggest that that's something that Rich and company and we can help bring that up with MDT to make sure that they're aware of that, and that they're having dialogue with tribal council about that, or about any other safety matter for that fact. Not speaking for MDT right now, but that would be my suggestion, is to take that path forward.
Thank you. One more follow-up, just that's kind of in the same line as the safety, is the amount of traffic that we get on this highway out here toward the summertime and the fall, and with all of the craziness of the COVID and everything. I mean, it's bumper to bumper. And I know that not one of these smaller towns, including Polson, are built for that amount of traffic. And I wonder if that's been considered.
So
The
great
amount
question.
of people who's moved in here, like the 3,100 in May, that a bulk of that traffic.
Yeah, no, great question. So backing up a little bit in history, when Ron was on the council, in fact, I think he was the chair at the time. That was about the time that we did that safety audit. And at the end, we had a debriefing with everybody, and the question was asked, what would you do different if you had to do it all over again? And one of the comments was exactly what that you had stated, is the traffic continues to increase, especially in the summer months. It's bumper to bumper. It's not safe. So is there a way that you could, you know, specifically through Post Creek, Nine Pipes and into Ronan, could you add, you know, capacity? Could you add lanes to the highway? Ronan already is designed and will be designed for a 4-lane couplet system. So it will look a lot like the highway from Pablo to Polson. But Nine Pipes, because of the sensitive areas, it was looked at closely, I think, by CSKT resources and MDT resources. And the concern was there were so many sensitive properties in the Nine Pipes area, it was difficult to be able to put a 4-lane or a multi-lane highway in there. You know, divided highway would be the safest, but that would be fairly disruptive to the environmental sensitive areas in the Nine Pipes area. And so at the time, we were going to take a look at that. And then it was decided, you know, about 6 months later that, you know, both parties agreed that we should stick with the SCIS. But your comment is well taken, because at the time there were about 15,000 cars a day. And, you know, in my experience, when you get up to 20,000 cars a day, that means you're bumper to bumper, which is exactly what you have coming into Ronan all summer long. And so that's a great question. And it's something that was discussed. Obviously the answer to handle that would be just like what you'd have up north, a divided 4-lane. But the problem is the sensitive areas through Nine Pipes make that, you know, very difficult to arrive at. So that's why when they came up with the preferred alternative of a safer 2-lane through Nine Pipes, they wanted to minimize the impacts to those properties.
Okay. So I understand, you know, the sensitivity of that area. You know, we're all about saving the turtles and the birds and even the grizzly bears that have crossed through that area. I see animals, you know, along the side of the road all the time there. And I know having worked at Kicking Horse Job Corps for 15 years, turning off onto that from Ronan, every morning I took my life into my hands because somebody was coming this way and they decided they had to, you know, go around and, you know, just about have a head on there every morning.
Mhm.
So, you know, I know there's opportunities for like passing lanes every couple miles, you know, while keeping the Nine Pipes area sensitive,
Mhm.
you know, and I also know what Anita's saying because I live in Arlee. And so when I drive home some days, gosh, it is bumper to bumper from Ronan from where the lights are.
Mhm.
I've driven all the way to the Charlotte turnoff to that Connie's Cafe where it's
Mhm.
been bumper to bumper with nothing but boats and campers. So yeah, I drive this highway every day, so I know what she's talking about as far
Mhm.
as the volume. And one thing I've noticed is a lot of the Texas and California license plates have not gone home. Like usually they'll be gone by Labor Day, but they're still here. Some of them. Yeah, I would be really interested to see that safety audit and if there's any updates, you know, since the 5 years. Go ahead, Rich.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, Scott will get that out to the tribal council as soon as we're done. And I just wanted to mention that you know, what I'd like for the council is just your consensus or blessing to continue moving forward and garnering that public support that we're going to need when we submit that grant, and try to enlist our lobbyists, especially in DC, and the state lobbyists, and whoever the council rep is on our TDC, just to continue, because we all know this is a very important project that we just need to get done. I mean, I think about it, and Leonard and I were 31, you know, when this project started, and now we're having gray hair, and it's weird. It should have been done a long time ago, but yeah, and MDT, I believe they are on board, regardless of who the governor is. And just a funny note that these guys are both local. He's from Libby and he's from Columbia Falls, so they're both local.
So just for clarification, we are going to apply by the January 9th deadline next year.
Yeah, sorry about that. We don't think that the January 9th, this cycle, will be possible without MDT, you know, essentially supporting that nominal 10%. It might be more, but at least a 10% match. But what we are confident of with this new transportation bill, that there will be certainly another cycle, and MDT has provided from a high level continued support to not where we came into this and we said we're gonna do this in 2 months. We kind of started working with Rich a couple weeks ago or before Thanksgiving, that we would be ready to go. Now we're looking at doing it in 4 or 5 months, and working with MDT along the way to make sure that it's ready to go when this cycle comes up next year. And we will be ready, and it'll be a competitive grant application, and MDT will have support of it, is what they've committed to us yesterday. And
I just wanted to make sure Whisper is online and she's part of the team as well.
Any other questions from council?
Yeah, Madam Chair, please.
Go ahead, James.
Thank you. Hi, Whisper. I wanted to ask you a question. You know, before we started this back in whatever year it was, I remember everyone going down around the different sections of the highway and putting the sand out to gauge, you know, the animal crossings. I'm assuming from all that experience that we have and all the monitoring, what are some of the things that you all in your shop have learned from the wildlife division, things that we should do different or things that we should include in this new sections that we got to complete? What are some of the things that you've learned or seen, or, you know, in terms of the wildlife corridors and the new sections that we'll be working on?
Thanks, James. Well, I guess I would say that the wildlife fencing is one of the things that we've learned, that the wing fencing isn't specifically the best way to get the wildlife to go to the crossing structures. I popped out of the Highway 93 wildlife fencing meeting to jump on real quick because of the number of grizzly bears that have been hit on Highway 93, and the Department of Transportation has exceeded their allowable take of grizzly bears on the highway. There was a new biological opinion written, and in that it said, MDT, you need to do something to address all the bears that have been hit. So one of those techniques or temporary mitigations is to button up the wildlife fencing in the Sitting Nations area. So instead of having wing fences north of Mission where people are still hitting deer and hitting bears, that will get tightened up so that they have to use a crossing structure or a fence end to cross the highway. So that's something that's currently going on. There's been research projects that we've been part of that have documented that. For the Kicking Horse 9 Pipes area, I say wildlife fencing because it's important. But every time I drive through there, I think about the view shed and our missions. And when we're driving through and looking at our mountains and thinking about what that fence would look like if we had an 8-foot tall fence as we drive through that area, and thinking about view shed versus highway safety. And that's something to continue to discuss. Wildlife crossing structures have been evaluated as we've been going on. Some of the structures that were included in the environmental impact statement were not possible to build physically, and we've already gone through some processes to change those or modify those or move those to different sections. So I think that just looking at the types of structures and trying to be effective in this really sensitive ecological area is what we've learned, and trying to take all that adaptive knowledge and put it into the new project. And we're working on this feasibility study with MDT right now. And I think our next meeting is January 13th, but they're looking at everything that was in the FSEIS and saying, are those structures possible to build? And we have to keep on the team and make sure that they know that we need to keep those going. So we're learning, we're trying to adapt and do what's best for the tribes.
Thank you, Whisper. Thanks, James.
So really quick, Madam Chair, I just wanted to ask if we could get, tribal council consensus that we continue moving forward and allowing us to begin that public support campaign with all our legislatures and local towns and cities and especially our tribe.
So is there any opposition to the request? I think we have consensus. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members of the council, have a great day.
Thank you. Sorry for the delay in scheduling. Okay, next up we have John Wheeler, and his information is on page 2 and 3 in our packets. Good afternoon, John.
Good afternoon, Shelley.
Go ahead with your item.
Okay, I'd like to have a resolution for the Montana Veterans Fund through the Montana Community Foundation. Do you want me to read it all the way through?
No, it's on page 3 in our packet for council to consider. Are there any questions from council? Mike?
John, this is 2,500 each year for 3 years?
No, it's 2,500 for the 3 years. It's not a whole lot.
Martin? Go ahead, Lynn.
Just a question. Thank you. John, thank you for bringing this forward. Always glad to see that we're obtaining funding for our veterans. But on this specific one, I'm kind of curious to know, can you give us an example on how this is spent on veterans?
Yeah, we can do it either for transportation. In fact, I could probably even work with Lloyd and Lawrence and we could do something there. Or also we have a VA advocate that can give them transportation to places that they need to go, or if there's any type of service they need for the emotional, intellectual, physical, and spiritual well-being. Because we have somebody that's on staff for mental health.
Okay, all right. Thank you, John. I was just reading the resolution and essentially just helps our veterans get to their appointments pretty much. So thanks.
Well, or also if for eligibility too, for getting them signed up. If we needed to take them to a doctor or something to find out if they're eligible.
Okay, Martin,
I would make the motion to apply for the funding specified in the resolution. Thank you.
okay, we have a motion by Martin. Question, Mike?
Thank you, Madam Chair. John, and now therefore be it resolved that the CSKT Tribal Council approves the submission by Tribal Health for the Montana Veterans Fund through the Montana Community Foundation. I think that would help clarify. With that amendment, I would second the motion.
Okay, second by Mike.
I'll accept the amendment
Okay,
to my motion, or make it with the
with that
correction. sorry.
revision. Okay, all those in favor? Okay, motion carries unanimous. Thank you, John.
Thank you very much. Have a nice day.
Yep, you too. Okay, next up, we have Melinda Charlo. Her information is starts on page 4 in the packet. Good afternoon, Melinda.
Good afternoon. Today I'm here for council approval for 2 project-specific agreements with the Montana Department of Transportation. The first one is on page 4, and this is a project for some new LED luminaire lights that are going to go in on the US Highway 93 from Everett to Elmo. And that is going to be, the project will be let out this winter, and then the construction will be done next year and finished next year. The total cost of the project right now, the estimate is $214,170. And the full project specific agreement is starts on page 5.
Mike?
I'll make the motion to approve that project.
Okay, motion by Mike. Second by Martin to approve the project-specific agreement for the LED luminaires project. Questions? All those in favor? Opposed? Abstained? I'm sorry, Carol, I didn't get your vote. Are you for? Okay, motion carries unanimous.
Okay. The second project specific agreement, it starts on page 8. The full PSAs starts on page 9. This one is for a asphalt overlay in the Perma Canyon. The map of the area is on page 12 that shows the full length of the area where this project's going to go. This project is going to be in next year. It's going to be let in the spring and should be completed by June of 2022.
Madam Chair,
Go ahead, Ellie.
make the motion to approve the project-specific agreement with the MDT for an overlay project at Perma Canyon.
Okay, motion by Ellie, second by Mike. So I just wanted for clarification. I know we've had some discussion about this particular area, so this is just overlaying the existing road? Okay.
Yeah, that's just overlaying what's the existing area. We're not making any like additions to the road right now. There's still studies going on in that area, so they're not gonna make it wider yet or anything right now. This is just to put an overlay over it.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Any other questions? All those in favor? Okay, motion carries unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you, Melinda. Okay, next up we have legal.
Morning, Madam Chair, council members. So all of our items will be in executive session except for one. If Jordan's on, I can have him have his one open session item first. So go
Okay.
ahead, Jordan.
All right, Chesel Tribal Council, it's good to see everyone today. I have a quick food update and request. So we've been busy with food, just going at it. So just to give you guys really quick updates, we're nearing completion at Kicking Horse. We have a few more contracts to get through to finish up the Kicking Horse kitchen, cafeteria, a storage area, and the freezers. And so we're getting close there. Also, we've been conducting task force interviews. Those have been going good. We've interviewed probably about half a dozen folks from Economic Development, Natural Resources, Kootenai Culture Committee, SKC Extension Office. So we're working through those, trying to get a sense of what the departments think would be helpful, what their vision for food sovereignty in the future is, and kind of what a permanent food entity could support them with. And then Trina Fian's been really working on putting together a pilot program. As you all are aware, we were awarded a grant from Headwaters to conduct a pilot program. So we're putting that together, hopefully to launch in January in order to support providing food to elders, perhaps children, and then the greater community. But what I wanted to talk to you guys today about specifically was a holiday meal kit distribution. If you remember last year, we were doing a holiday meal kit distribution. We provided 1,200 boxes and $25 gift cards to local grocery stores to the community. That was very well received, and we've been getting questioned on if we were going to do that again. And so Trina's ready to go. We've been talking with Mission Mountain Growers Cooperative. They are willing to provide us boxes. And so talked with Rick and some finance folks to see if there's any CARES Act funding left. And they said there probably is. And so if we wanted to use that, that would be good because we have to spend all that up by December 30. So today I'm requesting up to $70,000 for a holiday meal kit distribution that would be distributed between December 27th and December 30th. It would have local organic produce in the boxes, potentially more stuff. We just need to figure out what we want. And then $25 gift cards to local grocery stores like we did last year. And because the boxes are already coming prepackaged, we're going to cut down on some of the expenses we need for temporary workers, but we're still expecting we would need some emergency workers for this operation. So with that, I'm just requesting up to $70,000 from CARES Act funding for the holiday meal kit distribution if council would like that program again this year.
Anita?
So I would make that motion to approve up to 70,000.
Okay, motion by Anita. Second by Charmel. All those in favor? Motion carries unanimous. Thank you, Jordan.
All right, great. We'll get to work on that. Thank you all.
Okay, good luck with that. Okay, we'll go out